Hey, Ryan Osborne here with Oz Coaching. It's a Functional Friday, fitness tip time. And today I'm going to talk about ankle mobility and specifically dorsiflexion ability. So that's the ability to raise your toes, but more from a functional standpoint, it's your ability to allow the shin bone, your tibia, okay, to kind of have a positive forward angle. And the farther you can go, but still keeping obviously your full foot and your heel on the floor, that would indicate that you have adequate ankle mobility. And if you don't have that ability, the reason why ankle mobility is such important is that research shows that that lack of ability to kind of allow that so-called shin bone to go forward will create more rotational torque at the knee joint. So if you are a runner, a walker, if you do lunges and squats, things like that on a regular basis, then that's going to put more impact on your knee. And further to that, it also, your lumbar spine, because the whole joint by joint approach is that if a joint that is supposed to be mobile is not mobile, then of course the joint above or below is going to have to compensate for that. And in this case, if the ankle is immobile, the knee slightly gets rotational torque, the lumbar spine is actually going to round more to help compensate things. So as you can see, it goes really up the chain. So the ankle mobility, like I said, is something that most people don't even think about or maybe even understand the impact. But I would say most assessments that I do on clients usually show that that's an area that is immobile, is dysfunctional, and should be addressed. But from a simple test standpoint, all you need to do is literally kind of measure out about 4 inches, 4 to 5 inches. Research is kind of pretty well between the two of those numbers as so-called, that's a minimum amount of distance if you kind of do this test. And if you've got the ankle mobility to do it, then at least you've got so-called good mobility. You certainly can have better, so it's not to say that you only need 4 or 5 inches from the wall. But for a lot of people, you think of even females that obviously either wear, elevated heels all day, then that's going to basically compound the issue, make it actually more of a problematic area to get ankle mobility, okay? But literally, measure out 4 inches and place a piece of tape on the wall, and all you do is, get your toes behind that piece of tape. You can do this, standing kind of in a semi-lunge position, but I like to do this, down here. Necessarily, you can kind of make sure in terms of allowing your body to get right close to the wall. So all you need to do is, measure out, and you just basically lunge back and forth, right? So if you can't touch the wall with the knee, so finding a flight wall from the knee, and you hit that wall with the knee and your full foot, including your heel, stays flat on the floor and you're 4 inches apart, then that's an indication that you've got relatively good ankle mobility. If you can't, then, it's definitely an area that I would highly recommend that you try to focus on. And that's literally even also an actual exercise, is that you could just, wherever you lie, if you're, say, only 3 inches or whatnot, is just basically, slightly moving your foot back, do 5 or 6 reps where you're going back and forth, and just slightly move your so-called foot a little bit back until you can't necessarily touch the floor without your heel coming off the floor, touching the wall, sorry. Or you could literally just get into this position here. You could either even place like a small weight on this, and you're just trying your best at driving that so-called tibia forward with the emphasis of trying to keep your heel in contact with the ground. So, there is other ways of doing it, but really just for this so-called video, I just wanted to, make aware of an area of the body that, like I said, can drastically really affect the function of, specifically the knee and your low back. But like I said, if you are a runner, any avid, active individual, it's something that you should always check, because from that, you could look at, you can, when you purchase shoes and things like that to kind of offset so-called, the layout of your foot, that's a great thing to do. And if you haven't, then you should always have your feet or get your feet assessed and make sure you've got the right shoes for your so-called foot positioning. But ankle mobility is, if you can gain that extra range of motion, that can really save specifically your knee and your low back and help improve even like running gait, obviously squatting, squats, lunges, things like that, because ankle mobility is definitely a key play or key player in that role. So anywho, hope you enjoyed today's video. As always, comments and questions, love to hear it, and hope you have an awesome weekend. Thanks, guys.